Commissioner Derek King. Present. Commissioner Tommy Miller.
Present.
Commissioner Gary Tompkins.
Present.
Commissioner Kathy Sue Fetty.
Here.
Commissioner Michelle Hatcher.
Present.
Commissioner Jake Smith.
Present.
Commissioner Steve Frisbee.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. After a moment of silence, I have Commissioner Hatcher lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Have approval of the agenda. Have a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Betty.
Support.
Betty and Hatcher. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Any approval of the minutes? Can I have the approval for the minutes of the September 16, 2021 Board of Commissioners regular session as attached?
So moved, Tompkins.
Support.
Tompkins and Hatcher. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. It's citizens' time. And I don't have the, wait a minute, I do. The next item on the agenda is citizens' time. During citizens' time, the board chair shall recognize any person wishing to address the board. A person recognized by the chair shall approach the podium and state his or her name and community of residence. A person may address the board only once on the same matter during each period set aside for citizens' time on the agenda and only on matters that are relevant to county government. The chair shall control the length of each time each person is allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes, and shall not allow negative personal comments. Is there anyone that would like to address our commissioners?
Hello, my name is Carolina Papias. I live at 252 Beaumont Drive, Better Creek, Michigan. I am here to get a couple clarification as I have reached out to a few of the board members and I have not received any response, and it's been over a month. I want to get a few clarification on the new quarantine order that was put in place on October 2nd. Why was the old order rescinded on September 30th and the new one was put in place October 2nd? Is it because the new bill that was signed by Governor Whitmer stated that if a local health officer has an emergency in effect as of October 1st, 2021, the funds appropriated in Part 1 for essential local public health services are unappropriated? So is it about health or is it about money? Which one is it? Because this doesn't make sense. If it's rescinded on October 30th and the new one is put in October 2nd. Also, in the bill states that if a new order is put in place, it has to be voted by the Board of Commissioners. And to my knowledge, that order was not voted upon. So why are we doing a new order if most of the counties in Michigan are rescinding all of the emergency orders regarding COVID? I would really like if I know I'm not supposed to say names who I emailed probably, but I would really appreciate if the people that I emailed respond to me. It's been over 30 days, and I know there's been many more community members that emailed and called, left voicemails. Nobody responded to them. This is about us. It's about the community. It's about our children. In the new order, it states that 27.7 individuals get sick with COVID while in quarantine. Harper Creek School District had 162 kids that were quarantined. Only 2 of those kids came back positive. That is a 1.2% positivity rate, not 27.7 like it's written in the new order. Why is the discrepancy? I requested data regarding the COVID cases, have not responded. Nobody has responded to me about those. I sent an email. The person that responded to me said they don't know what I'm talking about. Am I supposed to do your guys' job No, you guys get paid for this. You guys, some of you probably volunteered to do this. Why is it up to me to look at the data on Michigan website that it contradicts the data that shows on the Calhoun County website? It's wrong. This is wrong. I mean, our kids are, some of them have suicidal ideologies. Do you want that on your hands with all these quarantines that they're going through? Some of them, the only safe place that they have is at school. That's the only place that they feel safe and that they get food.
Need to wrap up your comments, please. You've exceeded 3 minutes.
Please, re-sign the order, the quarantine order. Let the kids go back to school where they belong and they get adequate and equal education. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address their commissioners? Anyone? We'll move on. Any elected and appointed county officials' comments?
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I just wanted to update you on a couple things we have opened. Our Police to Citizen portal. That portal is through our RMS system. It opens up and it adds a FOIA link. It adds crash reporting, ordering crash reports online, dog licenses, and a couple of the interesting things is we've opened it up to online incident reporting. We've opened it up to MDOP and larceny reports online. That's a tough decision. Years and years of law enforcement. We really had to dig deep and understand that, and we've been taught and trained for years that when someone calls, they like to see an officer at their door. Opening this up will allow people to report online. A deputy will still be assigned to those reports, and they still have to run through and do the micro reporting, but it may be a phone contact. But more and more people are looking for the convenience of reporting some things, but they still will not be overlooked. The other interesting thing on there is the inmate portal is open. So now you can go ahead and you can log in and you can see who's in jail, what their bond is, and the charge information. What we're trying to do is the intake center at the jail is just overwhelmed with phone calls, wanting to know who's there, why are they there, what's the bond. It's online now. And the best part about this is everything that we just talked about was free. It was all part of our RMS system. It just needed to be turned in and turned on and worked through. And thanks to Austin and Lucy and our team, they really did a good job to make this happen. So we've really opened up a lot of online stuff. That was one of our main goals. Last thing is, it is No Shave November early in October. So we are starting our No Shave November, December, and it'll be a maximum $100 that'll go towards our Honor Guard uniforms, and a portion of that will also go to United Way. So, and for the ladies, for the first time ever, as they've said, what can we do? We have opened up. There'll be a long sleeve shirt that says sheriff on it that they'll be able to wear on occasions through these months, and so they'll be able to participate also towards those opportunities. So a lot of good things happening.
I know.
So.
I was really worried about what you were going to say.
So.
I was waiting.
I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Here comes the clerk.
Good evening, Commissioners. I wanted to give you guys an update that the Calhoun County Apportionment Commission met today and did adopt our new commission, our county commission map with the census data that we've been provided. I wanted to give you guys an update. It is on our website as the approved plan. It does move some of our commissioners around a little bit, and so if you aren't aware of that, it does. But I wanted to let you guys know that I'm here if you have any questions afterwards or want any other data or anything that I can provide for you guys. I'd be more than willing to talk with you about it. But I also wanted to not only thank the members of our Apportionment Commission for the time that they've put into it. We've had quite a few workshops and had a really good discussion, and we're open across the 5 members as we worked on our maps and tried to determine what the best course for the citizens of Calhoun County would be for the next 10 years. But I would also like to thank our GIS coordinator, Brent Thalen. I don't know how some counties were working on their maps without GIS. He was a true godsend, and we adopted our map through the state's CCD tool, but a couple of other commission members, we also were putting some of those numbers into what's called Dave's redistricting tool, and he was instrumental in moving that data from one tool into the other, making sure that our maps were correct, and we just can't thank him enough for his services. Also to Dave Hackett and the members of the IT staff for facilitating our meetings for us every time and making sure that we're up and running, and I just really appreciate them. I also would like to thank Terry Lowe, our Chief Deputy of Elections, who served as secretary, again, for her 3rd redistricting commission. And so I'm sure she will not want to be around for a 4th redistricting commission. But we appreciate her history and understanding and guidance as we went along this process. As well, I'd like to thank Corporate Counsel Jim Dyer. I think we kept him on his toes the last several months, and we appreciate his expertise and guidance in the law as we went through this process. I also would like to thank Battle Creek City Clerk Victoria Hauser. The City of Battle Creek had asked about moving some lines that affected county commission districts for their precincts to help facilitate the City of Battle Creek voters a little bit better. So we took that under advisement as well in making our maps. And I appreciated her last-minute help with some things that the commission needed help on, as well as other members of the Battle Creek City staff. And last but not least, to my Chief Deputy, Julie P., and staff member Marion Washburn, who filled in for Secretary Lowe when she needed to be away due to circumstances beyond her control. So I just appreciate everyone's understanding, and I appreciate each one of those that facilitated in helping us to get this process done. And thank you very much.
Clerk, maybe you could just comment on who the members of the constitutionally seated folks were of the commission.
Yes, I would be glad to. So that's Prosecutor David Gilbert, Treasurer Brian Wensauer, myself, and Republican Party Chair Jeannie Birchfield, and Democratic Party Chair Elizabeth Byrd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. Any other elected officials? All right. Next, we have the biennial election of members of the Calhoun County Board of Canvassers. The four-year terms of 2 members of the Calhoun County Board of Canvassers will expire on November 1st, 2021. Those 2 members are Brendel Hatley, representing the Democratic Party, and Sue Groth, representing the Republican Party. The 4-year terms of Democrat Susan Buckley and Republican Pam Lastly will expire in 2023, so each will remain on the board for another 2 years. MCL 168.24C provides that the expired terms are to be filled as follows. The county committee of each party is required to provide the county clerk with the names of 3 nominees for the party's expiring seat on the board. The Democratic Party submitted Brendel Hatley, Wayne Kukuk, and Linda Pell. Republican Party submitted Deborah Baker, Erica Brown, and Jill Stout. The County Board of Commissioners is required to fill 2 vacancies on the board by electing a Democrat member and a Republican member from the names submitted. Michigan law specifies that a ballot be used by the County Board of Commissioners in filling in the seats. You will vote for 1 nominee in each party. Michigan election law also gives commissioners authority to request that the nominee provide a letter indicating their interest in serving on the board, the intent to discharge the duties of the position to the best of their ability, their prior election experience, and have they been convicted of a felony or election crime. Because of the Open Meetings Act provides a secret balloting process at a public meeting, the votes you cast must be made available to the public. The ballot you received tonight has a number correlating to the district you represent. Unlike a real election, please do not tear this numbered stub off your ballot. If a citizen inquires about your vote, the board secretary will have record of it. Board Chair Steve Frisbee will appoint 2 tellers to tally the votes of the 7 commissioners for both parties. I'm going to have Commissioners Smith and Commissioner Tompkins serve as the tellers. And I'm going to distribute the, right here. So make sure you are voting on the ballot that represents your district. District 1, 2, I think that's Rochelle's, 2, 3, 1 and 3, and 4, 5, 6, and 7. So please cast your ballots. And do not rip off the corner. Do not. Okay. So we're going to turn those into Commissioner Smith and Tompkins. You two will tally the votes. And then let me know. Does anyone need to spoil their ballot? Nope. Good. Those will go to the deputy clerk. And
All right, Mr. Chair, the Calhoun County Board of Commissioners has elected Brendel Hatley as the Democrat to the Board of Canvassers and Erica Brown as a Republican to the Board of Canvassers. The County Clerk election staff will notify all 6 nominees as well as the party chairman with the results of your election tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Tompkins. All right. Can I have a motion to approve that Erica Brown, Republican Party, and Brendel Hatley, the Democrat Party, have been duly elected by the County Board of Commissioners and are hereby appointed to the Calhoun County Board of Canvassers for a term of 4 years beginning November 1st, 2021, ending October 31st, 2025, as presented.
So move.
I have a motion and support. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Actually, do we need to record this vote? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and open it, and we'll have to vote electronically. No?
We're not spending money.
Okay. All right. All right. Next, we are moving on to resolution supporting Battle Creek Unlimited's grant application for the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration Build Back Better Regional Challenge to develop Michigan Unmanned Aerial System Park projects as attached. Would someone like a motion? Have a motion? Support. And support. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Just a point of clarification, if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Being it a resolution, should we not be doing a roll call vote because it's a resolution?
We can. Want to do electronic vote?
It's fine. It's for point of clarification. I have done it in this resolution.
Not necessary? Okay.
Just as a point of clarification.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we're on to our consent agenda. There are 4 resolutions from other counties. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Ready?
Okay. There was also other resolutions. You're good?
Support.
Have a motion support. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Any special committee workshop or board reports?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, there are 2 I want to report out on. First and foremost, the Senior Millage Allocation Committee met on October 1st. We heard from representatives of the Senior Services of Southwest Michigan on their recent rebranding and renaming of their organization, which is now going to be called Milestone Senior Services. So we'll be looking for that change. There's no service change. Nothing changes just other than they're rebranding themselves. We also recommended for approval 3-year funding contracts for the Senior Center support for the Heritage Commons, Carroll Center, Carroll Services, and Money Management, Guardian Finance, and Advocacy, as well as we approved supplemental funding requests to Guardian Finance, Guardian Money Management, and to the Fork Senior Center as well. And then finally on that, we approved a mini grant request for Bedford Township in the amount of $1,242 for rural senior outreach. And that's specifically important because the Senior Millage Allocation Committee, one of the things that we really were targeting is rural outreach and how local townships, how the grassroots can get seniors involved. Lee Township in my district was the first township to actually implement that, and they've been doing wonderfully, and now it's great to see Bedford jump on board too as well with that. So it's great senior-wise. And then secondly, this morning, the Calhoun County Broadband Task Force met this morning. The merit survey will continue for another month through October. We originally had it finishing off in September. We currently have around 1,200 surveys versus a target of 1,400. And the results of that survey will be presented to us in January, February timeframe. So anybody that has not taken the survey yet, please take that opportunity to do so that we can meet our targets. So
How many did you have back?
I'm 1,200. We're about 1,200 right now, and 14 is where we want to be. So there's some additional things that they're doing to try to get that as well up. Also today, Administrator Scott proposed a contract adjustment with Aspen Wireless, which would oversee the project as a way to, would allow the county to be bringing if you want, operations manager or a construction manager separate from what's being done now, which will be able to oversee the project as a way to eliminate any conflict of interest situation, being that Aspen Wireless is a potential bidder of the project, so which I very much agree. Great job, Administrator Scott, in making that recommendation moving forward. And then also, too, we're in the process of breaking out into work groups in multiple categories: rural, business, education, seniors, and healthcare, and brainstorm the challenges, opportunities in each area to gain a better understanding of the needs, et cetera. So there's a number of us, certainly in the task force, been broken up in different groups. We'll be meeting with a variety together to actually brainstorm to see what are those opportunities and challenges. Some people obviously are more astute in the healthcare field. What are those challenges versus business and rural? So I think it's an excellent opportunity as we move forward. And I just want to make the comment, I see Lucy isn't here tonight, but she's been doing an amazing job leading the task force, kind of navigating us through the water. So certainly appreciate Lucy's leadership on that. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you, Chair Frisbee. Summit Point met last week, or no, this week. It was just this week, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, for our October board meeting. And as part of that, we did our CEO evaluation, which was conducted by Kim Archambault, our very own, from the county. And she does such a nice job. This is the second year that we've been able to Shanghai her into doing this task, and she does such a nice job. I'm happy to report that Jeannie had very high scores. It was from some board members and employees, and then also community members. And so anyway, so she was up in the 90 percentile. So it was a really nice comments and nice exercise to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Miller.
Mercer Downtown Development met, I believe it was the 23rd, and we did some discussion, and we approved a balance for the Blues Fest for next summer. And
We had a group wanting to donate new benches around the fountain, but we decided we wanted to, that's fine if they want to, but we want to have specifics on them because we want to keep everything so it goes together downtown. And we had some discussion on putting some bike racks throughout the town, just something small for bike racks to people. That's about it.
We have no unfinished or old business, so we'll move on to new business. I'll turn it over to Administrator Controller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just mention a couple of items, not from boards and committees, but I had the opportunity to attend 2 different conferences over the last couple of weeks, one in person and one virtual. The Michigan Association of Counties held its annual conference at Mackinac Island this year. Commissioner Vetty also went to that conference. We heard some good, of course, legislative updates, a lot of focus on the state's budget that just got adopted that prior week. But there was also some good workshops on broadband initiatives, American Rescue Plan spending, and then our county administrators also held a meeting during the conference. So if you get the Michigan Association of Counties newsletters and weekly legislative updates, they do have copies of all of the presentations on their website. So if you're interested in any of those topics, a lot of good slides there. And then virtual was the International City County Managers Association, or ICMA. That workshop or that conference was this week. It was both in person in Portland, which I didn't go to, and they had a really nice digital platform where they live streamed certain sessions. And I think probably the biggest theme for all of those sessions had to do with workplace culture, trying to figure out solutions for hiring and retaining employees. There was a lot of focus on mental health and on trying to find our new normal. They talked about combining police initiatives with mental health associations. A lot of those initiatives are taking place here in Calhoun County. So again, a very, very very good workshop, and I've shared some of those presentations internally with our staff so that hopefully we can follow up on some best practices. And then I'll just mention that we are on track with the county's budgeting process for 2022. We had meetings since the last board meeting. We had budget committee meetings with the Board of Commissioners, budget committee, and our internal budget committee following requests that were submitted by all of our department heads. So we made a little bit of headway on a $5+ million gap for next year. We're still looking at about $3.5 million deficit that needs to be resolved before we bring the budget forth in November. So a week from tomorrow are the budget hearings all day. We're doing those by Zoom. And I think it'll be important as we present the budget this year to make it clear that we do have the one-time American Rescue Plan Act funding that needs to be invested as one-time funding. As you know, with our current year, we've already had to infuse some of that for budget stabilization. There is a big portion of it built into next year's, but even with that, we just have a really large reduction. Our charges for services line item in our general fund has decreased by $4 million over the past 4 years, and that's really the crux of our issue. When we look at a baseline budget that just shrinks by $4 million over, almost 10% over the last several years, we're going to really need to have some long-term strategies around the revenues and right-sizing our expense side. So in spite of the one-time funding, we still have a pretty big budget issue to deal with over the next month. So that's my report. I hate to end on a negative note. So I'll just say happy birthday to Patrick Moore tomorrow. So then let's go to new business this evening, and we have 5 items. The first one is 12B1. Actually, we have 6 items. 12B1 is a proposed new telecommuting or remote work policy. I want to thank Kim Archambault, our HR director, for putting this together. And I'll summarize it and then just ask if she has anything to add or can answer questions. But really, this replaces a temporary policy that we had in place related to COVID-19. We put this in place last spring to really quickly make it possible for our employees to work remotely and just make sure that they had the appropriate rules around accountability and tracking time and all of that. So the new policy, I think we strengthened that accountability. We maintained the expectations around working from home and made it clear that it's not an entitlement, that it needs to be mutually beneficial for the employee. It needs to be approved, requested and approved by the supervisor and also centrally at the HR level so that county administration can have a really good understanding of the situation across the county of, how many people do we have working remotely and what's their schedule in case there are any issues. And then it also helps us, make sure we've got the proper technology and whatever we need to support those employees. So it adds a formal request form, formal approval. It also clarifies that it's sometimes, if we have an emergency, we might require people to work remotely. So that's in there as well. And that, again, it needs to be a mutually beneficial situation. It's nice that we can offer that flexibility to our employees. It also, in some cases, will allow them to be more productive. In some situations, it's not possible. And so, anyway, this policy should be something that we're planning to have in place permanently. And, of course, if things come up that require us to ask for an amendment, we'll do that. So, Kim, do you have anything to add, or do you want to just answer questions?
The only thing I would add is that we have really found out through this that the flexibility like this really will be needed for recruitment, retention, and work-life balance that a lot of employees are looking for now under this new normal. And as we go into the future, we'll need it to stay competitive in job market, things like that. The policy's also been vetted through our normal process with elected officials, department heads, and the applicable unions that this policy could apply to. We would still need to get some letter of understandings with the individual unions in order to implement. That shouldn't be a problem because they've all reviewed the policy, and their comments were all included. The other piece is this would be effective January 1st, 2022. And at that point, the temporary policy would go away.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the new telecommuting policy as presented?
So moved, Tompkins.
Support.
Tompkins and Vetty. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is fantastic. I was just curious, do you have any idea, any estimate right now what percentage of the workforce is going to be working remotely? Or?
Not yet.
All right. Great. Well, thank you.
I just have one question. It revolves around measuring people in their productivity. And do we have those measurements in place and ensuring that folks are working when they're working from home?
We've talked about that a lot over the past year and a half.
Right.
We, had meetings with our department heads we were meeting every week, now every other week, but with the court administrators and with our department heads and elected officials. So some of the examples of those tools, we've actually had to provide logs of when people are connected to the county's internet or logged into the applications that, are their primary job, where are their remote phones, because we have soft phones on our laptops, so if their job is to answer the phone, we know when they're available, we can see records of that. And then, aside from that, that's kind of the generic tools that are available. Each department, then it varies quite a bit as far as how the managers are actually managing their employees' productivity. And in some cases, they just say, we can tell. They're not answering emails, or they are. And we did provide some tools to our supervisors and managers to help encourage ways to keep them engaged, keep them productive. I think we can always do more, but we've had some issues with it, and they have been able to deal with them. So we know that,
We
they're
have
able to
productivity
tell.
issues with employees
Yes.
if they're here or they're away.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make sure that was on everybody's radar. And I knew it was. I just wanted to clarify.
We also added a paragraph in this policy to address management oversight to make sure that is a piece of it.
Awesome.
Good point.
Any other discussion? All right. We're going to vote on this electronically.
All right, so Jake, how do I do this?
Right. Do you have the voting ability?
It didn't come up. Did it now?
Okay.
It might
Has
have
everybody
now.
voted?
There it is, yeah. Oh. Yeah.
It's not, I'm not seeing a message that everybody's voted. And okay. Everybody's voted. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Wow, it's a magic.
Thank you.
Okay,
The
so,
younger people are better at the electronic.
Yes, I had a little trouble there, but
We'll have
my
to bring-
son helped me out.
Have to bring our kids.
boy, we're going to try it again for about 4 more items. Okay, 12B2 is a request that you consider the county's purchasing policy and waive a specific provision in that policy in order for us to extend 3 pretty significant contracts for services that the county has. We're requesting a 4-year extension of our medical examiner contract with Western Michigan. We're requesting a 3-year extension of both the Corizon medical provision in the jail and also the inmate phones, which is actually a revenue generating contract and not an expense contract. And so our purchasing policy does require formal bids for these large dollar contracts, and I'll put that into context. The Corizon one's about $2.2 to $2.3 million per year. Very, very, very important service to provide both mental and physical health needs to all of our inmates. The sheriff, I'm sure, appreciates that service, and our contracting it out has been very helpful. We've built in some, under Brad Wilcox's leadership, we've built in some really good financial provisions that, for example, we have a cap, and it allows us to better give incentive for costs to be managed, just like we do our own county health benefits. And then the inmate phone system, again, that's a revenue generator of, let's see, I think it's about $330,000 per year, but it's also, again, a very nice convenience for the families of the inmates and also the inmates to be able to communicate with their loved ones. And then the medical examiner contract is about $400,000 a year. Over the next several years will go up to about $430,000. In Western Michigan, of course, it provides this service for many counties, and they've offered to renew the contract at basically similar rates to what they offer other counties. A little bit of increase, mainly because of there's the increase in opioid use, and they're doing potentially some more autopsies than in the past. But I'm going to stop there and just, so the point is, we'd like you to waive the provision that we bid these out. It's better to avoid disruption of service in all of these areas. Again, they're pretty big contracts and prices are only going up. And so the fact that Brad was able to negotiate, these favorable terms going forward, we think it could be very detrimental to take them all out for competitive bid. And in some cases, it's almost sole source. Last time we bid the medical examiner, I don't think we got more than 1 bid, did we? So, no. Yeah. So, again, Brad's the champion of this, worked with Jim Dyer on a review, and this is our conclusion, and we appreciate the board's support. And Brad, do you want to add to that rambling that I just did?
So we're really here today based on our experiences over the last 18 months of pandemic, and we consistently been bringing to the board contracts that have increase after increase after increase, and we've said we'd strategize around that idea. And one of the things we thought about is if we have a good, solid contract, the contract's good, the contractor's performing at a high level, why should we expose ourselves to market conditions that are unfavorable when we can negotiate an extension of the current terms we have? So, as Kelly stated, it's a $2 million medical contract. If we get a 4 to 10% increase is what we've been experiencing consistently throughout that 18 months, 2% is a normal inflationary increase, that's $40,000. But if we go 10% because we have a new vendor or we're out in the open market in unfavorable conditions, that's $200,000. So we're trying to backstop and minimize. We keep hearing this is transitory inflation. We're not seeing it. And what we're seeing is consistent and almost a constant barrage of increases. So, we do have criteria. We want to make sure that the vendors, the current contractors are providing good service. So we met with jail command staff, made sure they were satisfied, and they certainly were with the 2 inmate contracts. We want to make sure that there's not much competition or there's no new entries into the market. They're all true of that. That they're giving us competitive prices. For instance, inmate phones, we have a 66.1% rate. That's one of the highest in the country. So if we can negotiate to continue that, we shouldn't be going back to the market and putting ourselves at risk to get a deal that's not as good. There's also factors out there, regulatory and otherwise. FCC is consistently and constantly threatening with rate caps on inmate phones. You've got advocacy groups for criminal justice reform that are out there. So, there's a lot of factors that entered into it. But I think the bottom line is this is a strategy, especially with the big contracts where we have a lot of exposure, where we're going to kind of do this analysis and look at the market, look at the contract, and when we can and when it's responsible, we're in this habit, we rebid constantly because that's what we do. That's what, our policy says we do. And I think we were pretty good at it for 20-some years. This is maybe an aberration, maybe it's transitory, but we need to protect ourselves against those types of increases.
Can I have a motion to approve the waiver of purchasing policy provision for contract extensions for jail medical examiner, and inmate phone services as presented?
So moved, Betty.
Support.
Betty and Miller. Is there any discussion?
If I may, Mr. Chair, just real quickly.
Go ahead.
First of all, Brad, great strategy. I think it's an appropriate mode to take, certainly. But just curious, is this consistent with past practice, or is this kind of setting a precedence and something we've not done before? Or because you made a comment relative to the 20 years?
I think it's a new strategy.
Yeah.
It's kind of an overarching strategy. We've extended contracts before, but it's on a case-by-case basis, and it really didn't relate to the factors that we're considering today. So a little bit different, but it doesn't set a precedent necessarily.
Okay.
We've done it before.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, the vote is open. Everyone has voted, and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Good job.
The next two items come from the Road Department. We do have our Managing Director, John Midgley, here, and as well as our Engineering Director, Christine Parsons, and Engineer Brian Kernstock. So 3 engineers in one room tonight, so we have all the power to answer any questions. The first item is really a financing item. The Road Department is proposing to add another, basically is it a Durapatcher? Another Durapatcher to their fleet of 4 to make it 5. They're proving very successful. This one happens to be used. It's a 2014 model. Vortex Total Patcher is what it's called. And they have attached a quote from the municipal, I can't even read my writing, municipal finance company. It's about just under 4%, so pretty decent financing terms for 5 years, and it's a cost of about $55,000 to the Road Department. It fits within our fleet replacement plan, and just, this is a relatively inexpensive way to increase the ability to patch in a way that stays better than shoveling cold patch into holes. So just requesting your approval of the lease agreement so that they can make that purchase over the next 5 years.
Can I have a motion to approve the Road Department lease agreement for the purchase of a Vortex Patcher as presented?
So moved, Tompkins.
Support, Betty.
Tompkins and Betty. Is there any discussion?
I think it's a great idea.
Commissioner Miller?
Sorry.
I just can't see it. I mean, we spent $1 million on contract patching this year. We've got a lot of patching equipment that sits most of the summer. I can't see it happening. I just don't see where we're coming up with these numbers. I'm not going to support this. I mean, we used to patch with junk trucks that had holes in the floorboards, and we patched the entire county. We've got a lot nicer equipment now. A lot of equipment's less than 10 years old, and it just sits there. I can't support this. Thanks.
Is there any other discussion?
Yep, I got one.
Commissioner Tompkins?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will obviously support this. I think it's an excellent opportunity to continue actually being able to bring that respectability back to county roads like we've talked about. This has been proven across the nation in terms of being just a better way to patch roads, in terms of the longevity, the way it binds to the roads. And actually, we may not end up having to go back to the same road, to the same patch hole, or the same hole every year after year, as opposed to maybe every 2 to 3 years, maybe even beyond that. So again, I think it's a good investment, and it takes away from us having to do the patching, which is the old way, I guess, if you will, and it doesn't last. We know it doesn't. This is a much better, more efficient way to do it. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. King? Okay.
I vote yes.
Okay, all those, go ahead and vote. Votes are in, the motion carries 5-2.
Okay. All right, item 12B4 is another proposed new policy. Again, this one's from the Road Department. New policy for developing public roads. So I think the Road Department staff, particularly Christine, did a really nice job summarizing the benefits of having this policy and the need for it. It's really formal documentation to standardize the procedures and the requirements for accepting public roads into the county system. So this should make it clearer for proposed developers and give them guidance on what to expect. Before we really have been following this, but it was more on a case-by-case basis and more informally. So this should lay out the expectations before that so that people can read through it and be treated consistently. It also establishes a quality standard so that, we're making sure that roads are built to the proper quality so that they don't place a future burden on either the townships or the county. And, that has not happened consistently in the past. So I'll just stop there. Again, we've had this reviewed by Corporation Counsel. It is modeled after some other counties in Michigan. So highly technical, about a 53, I think, page document. And hopefully you've had a chance to at least look through it and ask any questions. And with that, I'll just ask anybody from the Road Department if you want to add to that or just be available to answer questions.
I think that you've summarized it really nicely. Our intention was just to standardize a process that needs to be standardized. This is something that in some counties, they just have a policy that says it's a case-by-case basis. And in Calhoun County, that's how it's been treated in the past. And part of what will make and what has made us more successful over the past several years is the ability to standardize processes, to say this is how it's treated every single time. And of course, there's always going to be cases where you may need a variance from that policy. But it's our intention to make things more clear for people, make things easier, know what to expect up front, instead of it just being this nebulous cloud of, well, in Emmett Township we do it this way, in Albion Township we do it that way, or one developer gets treated differently. And we want to level the playing field for everyone and just make it easier for us to say, okay, it's in the policy, this is what you should do, this is what we're going to do every single time. So, if there's any questions? Mm-hmm.
So looking through this,
Hang on. Can I have a motion to approve the policy for developing public roads as presented? We'll get a motion first. Okay.
So move, Eddie.
Support.
Betty and Miller. Go ahead, Commissioner.
So as long as somebody builds a road up to specs, amongst us, they're going to be approved. It doesn't have to be a specific contractor that does the work.
It doesn't have to be a specific contractor. It does have to be MDOT pre-qualified contractor. So anybody on that list, it does have to be MDOT pre-qualified.
So say like Dameron's builder isn't a qualified, and they
They're
did the
not,
work,
but if they were,
but if it meets specs,
it's got to be an MDOT pre-qualified contractor, which is one of the requirements. So if it's Dameron Brothers and they're not, as far as I know, pre-qualified, then that would not be acceptable. But they would see the policy beforehand and be able to say, okay, we know it has to be MDOT pre-qualified. That means Michigan Paving, Quality Asphalt, Lakeland, or Reith Riley. That's it for asphalt contractors.
That's the only ones.
That's it for asphalt contractors anyway. Only those 4 in Calhoun County. So there are other ones outside, but they don't service Calhoun County.
So you have to, even though it meets the specs, you'd have to be
Yeah, because MDOT pre-qualification is very rigorous and it means something for us. We don't work with non-pre-qualified contractors. So any road in the county that gets work done on it for engineering on a federal project or a county primary or county local road is done with an MDOT pre-qualified contractor, and we would expect no less from a private road becoming a public road. So we want to set a standard, a high standard, so that there's less of a burden on townships when they're called back in, because it's going to be a local road. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine a private road becoming a primary road in any That's just not going to happen. So what if the township says, okay, well, somebody built this and they weren't pre-qualified and it's poor quality because it wasn't built right or built by somebody who knew what they were doing necessarily. So we don't want to put that burden on them because, of course, then it just costs more. So.
Right.
Chair Frisbee.
Commissioner Betty?
Sorry, does somebody else?
Go ahead.
This is a great idea, and I really appreciate it. And I've worked with you on several different items, and you've always been just so helpful and upfront and honest and transparent. And I just love your work and think this is great. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would add that almost all of our bids, we have some level of qualifying within them. It doesn't matter if it's building roads or if it's providing us with services. There's some kind of qualification within that. So I don't have a problem with the MDOT qualifier. I think that's probably a good way to help protect yourself and get a quality product. It's not that others can't provide a quality product. This just helps ensure it.
Yes, yes, it does.
And gives you some fallback if something does happen. So, all right. I think we're ready to vote. Go ahead and vote. Unanimous decision. The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Item 12B5 is really a one-time resolution, and I will call this trying to reduce a little bit of government that is not really helpful or beneficial at this point. So this is a proposed resolution to do one of two things. We're really hopeful that we can propose dissolution of the Southwest Michigan Solid Waste Consortium. And if that doesn't happen, then the fallback would be we would still like to authorize us to allow Calhoun County to withdraw from that consortium. Not that it was a bad thing when it was created. I think back in the mid-1990s. It is one of those arrangements that was created by an interlocal agreement. There are 7 counties that participate, and Van Buren County has been acting as the fiduciary. As our Corporation Counsel, Jim Dyer, points out in the pretty well-written information, there were some flaws in it was actually created maybe not formally enough, meaning it really didn't incorporate and become its own entity. So it sort of loosely had Van Buren County holding a little bit of funds. There's not a lot of money involved here. But it requires that 2/3 of the members, so 4 out of the 7, would need to vote to dissolve the consortium because it's really not adding value at this point, and it requires us to appoint commissioners to that. I think Commissioner Tompkins is on that right now, and they meet in Van Buren County, and so they're not really adding value in the current day. And so the thought is, why continue to pay, I think it's $500 annual dues out of the county's budget when there's not really any value added? And I think Van Buren County, with their new county administration, is interested in kind of getting out of something that doesn't really have enough formality around it. And I'll stop there and ask Jim to add anything that I left out.
I think you covered it quite well, Kelly. The only thing that I might add is that in addition to I think I mentioned in the report that the consortium never formed itself as a separate unit of government, and that creates problems in a number of levels that I think that you have to consider for purposes of the dissolution. If the commission is dissolved, the funds are distributed to the remaining members. If we withdraw, there is no distribution, and so that's why we've tried to stage this in 2 segments.
Good. So. Commissioner Miller, did you serve on it as well? The regional, yes. Okay. Yeah, and I think I found, as well as Commissioner Tompkins, that we've had conversations about this as well. So let's get the resolution or the motion. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution to propose dissolution of the Southwest Michigan Solid Waste Consortium as presented?
So moved, Tompkins.
Support, Betty.
Have a motion and support. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just real quickly. Obviously, Chair of the Solid Waste Committee, and we've had several discussions on this topic. Sarah Kelly's done a wonderful job of digging into this and seeing if there is any value add. And Administrator Scott put it perfectly, that there really is no value add going forward on this, so certainly I support this. And actually, Sarah's done a nice job of collaborating with some counties in and around us, kind of developing her own collaboration, which has done a nice job, so certainly looking forward to her work on that aspect, so absolutely. Yeah, just didn't see any value add to it.
It was quickly going away from value added when I was there. A lot of talk, not a lot of action, and had to travel a long way to get there. So,
But at one time, it was
It had some value.
beneficial.
It
You know,
did.
when we had our compost center and the consortium had that machine
Yep.
that would churn the compost and everything, that, you know.
For a
So it's
little-
not like it was,
Yep. For a
let's
little
come
while,
up with this governmental
Right.
process and it was no
right,
good.
for a little while, in order to be eligible for some of the grants, you had to be part of a consortium. And most of that has gone away. So,
Well, that's part of the problem, though, too, because to apply for those grants, you have to be a unit of government.
Right.
And even though they applied and received the grants, they frankly did so under, I would say, inappropriate
right.
circumstances as a consortium. If they applied as a separate county, that's one thing, but
Right. All right, any other discussion? All right, please vote.
Oh my gosh, I think it's freezing.
Need one more vote. Someone has not voted.
See that? I don't know what mine did. I thought.
I'm seeing 6 votes. Are you seeing 7 back there?
Broke it?
Rochelle broke it. Can you reset hers? Okay. Everybody revote. Yeah. Technology's grand. There we go, 7 votes. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, the final item under new business tonight is for information only, our monthly financial statements. These happen to be through the month of August, given the timing of the last meetings in September. Prepared as always by our finance staff, our Deputy Controller Megan Banning. We have both of our Deputy Controllers here. Thanks for coming, ladies, tonight. And I'll summarize some of the highlights that are in the memo provided. So I'll start with the general fund. Revenues are slightly ahead of last year's revenues, which is a good thing. Property taxes especially, which are almost half of our general fund revenues, are up about $1 million from last year. Some of it is just the expected inflation and growth in property value. We also got our first distribution from marijuana tax this year, and the personal property tax reimbursement was up a couple $100,000 from last year. In the federal grants line, the really big discrepancy or variance, I guess, from last year to this year is we are starting to record the revenues from the American Rescue Plan Act, and we have to record the revenues in conjunction with the expenditures because it's considered a federal grant. So as we spend that money, you'll see the federal grants line increase. Our on the negative side, charges for services, as I mentioned during the budget update, are down about $2 million from the previous year, and last year we had a pretty large reduction. So mainly, again, it's in the area of leasing fewer jail bed days to other municipalities and to the federal government. On the expense side, we're also about 5% lower than last year. Some of that has to do with salary savings from the work share and furlough programs that have now ended at the end of September, I'm sorry. You'll also see in the transfer outline, the transfer outline item, the corresponding transfer or allocation from the ARPA funds to our external funds, which include the land bank and the road department. And then just a side note, we list a lot of the other special revenue funds, and the one highlight I would mention is positive, which is our hotel accommodations tax countywide is up about $330,000 from last year, so some really good recovery in that industry. From the road department is the other item that I'll mention, and I think the takeaway there is that the MTF, the main source of funding from the road department, is also rebounding. It's up about 14% from last year, and it's also positive about a 1.5% variance compared to what we budgeted. So we budgeted for some of that increase, and we're doing okay there, although, again, this is still lower than what should have been expected without COVID. And then finally, we put note at the end about countywide COVID spending. We're continuing to track those costs. Employees are still recording their time spent, any supplies and all of that. So we've, to date, since last year, March, we've spent about $3.2 million countywide. It's about half and half, about $1.5 million last year, about $1.5 million this year. Again, most of that is fully covered either by FEMA or the various other stimulus funds or grant sourcing. But we are still required to track that. And so it's just an interesting number, $3 million. And that concludes the financial report, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Can I have a motion to approve the Calhoun County August 2021 financials for information purposes only, as presented?
So moved, Betty.
Support.
Betty and Miller, is there any discussion?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious about the marijuana tax. Pardon me. Thank you. Curious about the marijuana tax distribution. Do those funds, considering it's our first allocation, those funds, what type of strings are attached to them?
There are no strings attached to them. It is considered just additional tax revenue from the state.
Okay.
And this one, it related to medical marijuana. We still don't have a good, I guess, projection of future funding from that source, or, you know, the start of the funding we think might take a couple of years from the recreational marijuana. We know we have a lot of facilities in our county, and with the, I think it's the recreational piece, there are some of those funds that are tied to or designated for the sheriff's office for public safety response, and then the rest to the county. And some counties are designating the funds to just say, you know, we're going to earmark this additional funding for mental health support. Right now, ours is in the general fund because we need it there. So that was a long answer to a short question.
No, I'm happy to hear that. I was just wondering if it's similar to, you know, our PA2 type of situation where it's really, it is, but it isn't.
We don't have SWIMBA.
Right. So, well, that's great to hear. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right. The vote is open.
Seems like Broadway, but I like to have the flexibility. Because of the issues.
And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. I think that concludes new business, right?
Yes.
Citizens' time. Same rules as the first time. Is anyone who would like to address their commissioners? And no negative personal comments, still 3 minutes. Anyone? Anyone? We'll move on. All right, commissioner time. Commissioner Smith? No? Okay.
I'll say a few things.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to address some of Miss Carolina's comments. So we've spoke, I think, maybe an hour on the phone and had a few emails. I'm not sure if you've reached out to anyone else up here, but me specifically, I think the data that you're looking for, your concern was that the state's data and the county's data didn't match. What I did determine is you're just not looking at the same filters as we look at. We get our data from the state. I don't know if that's been explained to you yet, but I know that you sent an email and are seeking that information. As it relates to the positive cases, the 1.2% positive of quarantines at Harper Creek, that's not accurate. It's about 25 to 30%. We were seeing substantially lower numbers specifically in Harper Creek last year, but it's 25 to 30% of quarantine that end up positive. That's mostly in the high school. That data was given to me today. In the middle school, where I have 2 kids, it's around 10%. It's a little lower, but the 1.2% number isn't something that I can see in any of the buildings there. But as it relates to the quarantine order, from everything that I read that came from the state, that is everything that was in effect from 10/1. It doesn't apply if a county board has passed a resolution supporting the emergency orders in effect as of 10/1. However, ours isn't in effect before 10/1. Ours is after 10/1. So my understanding is it doesn't need a county board approval. It's in the health department's hands, just like it should be. It's a decision that should be in the health department's hands, not something that the commissioners do. So that hopefully explains the quarantine order. I think that's what I texted you to, before the meeting tonight, but I just wanted to follow up with that. But this isn't question answer time, it's commissioner time, so we can talk after the meeting.
Yep. Any other commissioners?
Yes, Chair.
Go ahead.
Just two announcements or just reminders. First one, of course, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I encourage everyone because early detection is what helps and saves 99% of those patients. So please, everyone, take an opportunity, even though it's October, 1 month out of the year, but take it serious the other 11 months of the year. And I will be participating in a breast cancer awareness survivors walk this weekend that's going to be at with Cool Center there in Battle Creek. And then my second one is I just wanted to remind everyone also too again that Monday is Indigenous People choked on that, I'm sorry, day. And that is also too very important for us in Michigan. Michigan has 3 very, very important tribes, and that is going to be Ottawa and Potawatomi, and then also it is Chippewa, I believe it is. And they believe in keeping the 3 fires going for that, and that is what Michigan stands for, the 3 fires. And I just wanted to just bring that into, just bring it up. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to kind of convey exactly what Commissioner Hatcher said regarding Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It is not exclusively a female issue. My father's a breast cancer survivor. Totally unexpected, but that's what it is. So it is, males have to be concerned about it as well. So it's, again, breast cancer is not exclusively one gender or the other. It certainly can happen to, and it did to my dad. So luckily he was a survivor. So, all right, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? Just congratulations to our new Board of Canvassers.
Yes.
We appreciate their willingness to serve. It's an important role in elections, and we appreciate them. And thanks to the party chairs for offering those up and giving us quality candidates all around. So I'd also like to thank all of those folks on the reapportionment. That is not an easy task. And if you've played around with any maps in those processes, it is difficult. To follow the letter of the law and stay within the variances and all that. It's not easily done, and it really upsets the apple cart in this row going ahead, but that's what happens when you have to follow the law sometimes. So we don't get to keep what we had. I'm one of the lucky ones. Actually, my district, I don't think changes at all. And that's not by design, that's just by luck of the draw and the population. Significant population changes in Calhoun County in shifting and where they went within the city and within Emmett Township, specifically a little bit in Bedford and Penfield, but those shifts of population make a big challenge. So it's not by design to go out and upset the apple cart, it's by law. So, and I appreciate that hard work.
At least we're keeping the same amount of commissioners.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's important.
Kalamazoo lost 2.
Yeah, they could probably lose a few more. I mean, that's a number that is hard to deal with. I think it's crazy, but okay. All right, we'll move on. Claims payable. Can I have a motion to approve the Calhoun County claims payable for September 10th, 2021 through September 28th, 2021 in the amount of $7,526,782.86 as presented? Miller and Smith. Any discussion? Please vote. vote hasn't popped up yet. Here we go. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz back there right now. Man behind the curtain. All right, now you can vote. Thank you. Has everybody voted? Okay, now they all registered. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Any announcements? Now from the 7th.
Well, you know, I don't have anything specific, but it's always happening on the 7th, so just know that it is. I know, I looked, and it's been quiet, I know. But well, I'll get something next time for you, I promise.
No.
Thank you.
All right. Do we know the final impact of revenue sharing increases this year? What was the total? 2%. 2%. Good. All right. We are adjourned.
Tally sheet.
Gary does, I think.
The three of us.
All right, so it's